I wanted to share several selected quotes from a couple of articles connecting the Anglo-Saxons and the Nordic stories about Asgard to the lost 10 tribes of ancient Israel, or Samaria. I'll post links to the original articles in the comments. The Norse homeland was a city called Asgard, which was located within a region called, by the sagas, Midgard. The suffix gard originally meant a region, city, or stronghold. It is found today in the word grad, meaning a city, as in Petrograd, or Peter's city. It's also the parent of our English word yard, meaning a fenced enclosure. A number of scholars recognize that this Norse word, Midgard, is a thinly veiled reference to the region of Media in the Mideast. Links between Israel and the early Norse are pervasive. According to 2 Kings chapter 17, the Israelites were sent into captive exile by God to the cities of the Medes, Media, the Norse Midgard, city of the Medes. Anderson tells us that in the Lokasena Edda, the Norse god Loki says to Njord, "From here you were sent out east as a hostage to the gods." Here we learn that Njord, by the way, that's spelled Njord. I'm not sure how to pronounce some of these words, so I'm pronouncing them phonetically the best I can. Here we learn that Njord, as a representative of the Norse people themselves, had dwelled on the sea before his captive exile. The Israelites also dwelled on the sea, in Canaan, before being conquered and exiled. Anderson supposes that this sea, known by the Teutons, was the North Sea. However, it is not the North Sea, but the Mediterranean Sea, from which an eastward journey would lead to both Midgard and Asgard in Media. The Bible's account of Israel's captivity and exile from Canaan to Media perfectly fits the underlying details given in the sagas. Language study proves that the Assyrian term, Qumri, denoting the house of Israel, translates exactly into the Babylonian term, Kimiri, which scholars agree represents the early European Cimmerians, or Anglo-Saxons. For example, there is no letter K in Babylonian, and the Assyrian K, or KH, is ordinarily converted into a G in Babylonian. There is no U in Babylonian, so the Assyrian U is ordinarily converted into either the letter I or O, and so on. The Israelite Qumri are identical to the Anglo-Saxon Kimiri. The Bible tells us in 2 Kings 17 verse 6 that the house of Israel was exiled to Halah, Habor, in the cities of the Medes. However, the Median Empire was a big place, stretching over 2,000 or 3,000 miles at the zenith of its rule. Does the Bible give us clues as to exactly where in Media the house of Israel was exiled? Yes, in fact it does. The apocryphal book of Tobit tells the account of one of the Hebrew exiles of the tribe of Naphtali during the captivity. Where was he living? In chapter 1 he tells us that a great multitude of his kindred, exiles of the house of Israel, were settled in the area around the Median city of Rages, Rages. Again, I'm just pronouncing these words phonetically the way they're kind of spelled. A map of Media shows us that Rages was located south of the Caspian Sea and just west of the border of Parthia. An excellent book on the subject of Parthia and its Hebrew settlement was recently published by Stephen M. Collins, entitled Parthia, the Forgotten Ancient Superpower and Its Role in Biblical History. It tells about the Hebrew wise men, called Magi, of the Davidic descent of the Parthian royal family, and much other interesting and important matter related to our identity. Rages was located in the region of a Median province known to our modern history books as Sagartia. Is there evidence of a Hebrew presence there, as Tobit says? Yes, indeed. Since the Babylonian letter G converts into the Assyrian K, the word Sagartia could be written as Sakartia, showing the presence of the Saka, or sons of Isaac, Saxons. The leading vowel was often not written in Semitic languages, so Isaac could be written as Sak or Saka. What really caught my attention was that in the cuneiform language, Sagartia was often written as Asagarda. Researching this, I found an article by Sir Henry Rawlinson, the famous and well-respected 19th century archaeologist, linguist, and translator of the Behistun rock. He stated that the Median province of Asagarda was identical to Asgard, the homeland of the early European tribes. Quoting Sir Henry Rawlinson, "It is at any rate worthy of remark that the Scandinavian nations, whose eastern origin is unquestionable, retained in their mythology the name of Asgard. It may be presumed, then, that the Scandinavian races sprang from the country of Asagarta. You may remember from your history books that the early Anglo-Saxon Gothic peoples had a hero king named Odin, who led them most of the way on their journey from a place called Asgard into Western Europe and Scandinavia. The name Odin, or Adon, in fact, is purely Semitic. It is a title meaning Lord, rather than a name, and is the root of the Hebrew word for Lord, Adonai. It is related to the Adonis of Greek mythology. Webster's dictionary, in fact, says that the source of the name Adonis is undoubtedly Semitic. There has long been evidence to show a connection between the early Anglo-Saxons and the land of Media. For example, the 19th century Anglo-Saxon historian Sharon Turner wrote that there were literally hundreds of Median words in the Anglo-Saxon vocabulary. Mr. W. H. Bennett, in his book Symbols of Our Celto-Saxon Heritage, also gives evidence from heraldry of the Israel-Celto-Saxon connection. History books will tell you, of course, that Asgard's location is unknown and must have been somewhere in Eastern Europe. But we now have definite, factual evidence to show instead that Asgard, the birthplace of the Anglo-Saxon race, was in Media, or Midgard. In addition to that, I nearly jumped out of my chair when I read a Medo-Persian text in which Asagarda was written as Isagarda, a compound of Isaac, Garda. Scripture prophecies in Genesis 21:12, Romans 9:7, and Hebrews 11:18 all tell us, "In Isaac shall your descendants be named." And here was the name of Isaac in an ancient cuneiform text from the region of Sagartia in Media, the place of their exile. The Semitic word Gard or Cart means a tribal region or settlement. For example, the real name of Carthage was Carthago, meaning new settlement. So Isagarda literally means the Isaac sons' tribal settlement, and it was located exactly in the birthplace of the Saxon race. All these Saka, Saxons, or exiled Isaac sons migrated north into Europe. They passed through the Caucasus mountain region, leaving place names as they went. Today, the English-speaking world refers to the nation located in the Caucasus as Georgia. However, that country is actually known to its people as Sakartvelo. I mentioned this in the introductory chapter to the story of Celto-Saxon Israel, and that this name indicated the one-time presence of the Saka, or sons of Isaac. At the time, I had not yet researched the meaning of the rest of the name. It's a three-part compound: Sak, Cart, Velo. The Semitic word Cart means a tribal region or settlement. The word Velo is very interesting. It comes from an Indo-European root and means hidden, obscure, or lost. So the compound name, Sakartvelo, may be translated into English as the lost tribes of Isaac's sons. The residents of Sac-Hart-Velo call themselves Kartvelians, which literally means lost tribers. There are still some remnants of Israel left behind in those mountains, as the bulk of Israel moved on into Europe. Norse heroes provide additional evidence of a Hebrew identification. Helgi, the Holy One, was the son of Halfdan, the half of Father Dan, the judge. The word Dan means judge in Hebrew, and Dan was the progenitor of one of Israel's 12 tribes, the tribe of Dan. Settlers from the tribe of Dan later gave their name to the nation of Denmark, or Dan's Mark, as well as a number of rivers in Eastern Europe, such as the Danube. To add a few thoughts of my own, I would also identify the Nordic god Odin with the Egyptian god Aten. Remember that, according to researcher Ralph Ellis, Moses was the Egyptian pharaoh Tutmosis, and his brother Akhenaten became known as Aaron in the Hebrew tradition. If this is true, then obviously Aten was the original god of the ancient Israelite religion. It's also interesting that we find certain tribes in North America who worship gods that seem to be closely related to or derived from these Nordic gods. And that these tribes have legends about being visited by Anglo-Saxon or Nordic-looking people who taught them civilization and religion. But one of the main reasons I wanted to share excerpts from these articles, aside from the fact that they're really interesting, is that I've noticed that a lot of people in the pro-white community, for lack of a better term, have become interested in what they consider to be more authentic or native European religions. They see Christianity as Jewish and foreign, but as I've shown in other videos, Christianity is not Jewish, and the ancient Israelites were not Jewish either. Neither has anything to do with the Edomites, who call themselves Jewish today, who were the enemies of the ancient Israelites, and who are still the enemies of the true Israelites today. This is all a part of our heritage as a people. If you're drawn to legends about Odin and Asgard, then by all means learn more about that tradition. It's a part of our cultural heritage. But as the articles I've shared show, that part of our heritage can only be fully understood within the framework of our more ancient heritage. Why claim only a small portion of your inheritance? I believe we need to discover our common identity as a people. And I believe this means understanding the connections between Norse mythology, Druidic religion, ancient Israelite and Egyptian religion, and Christianity. And I would emphasize Gnostic Christianity, or other non-Roman forms of Christianity. I think the Roman Catholic Church perverts and corrupts our ancient traditions, just as much as Talmudic Judaism does. I think we should absolutely reject Judeo-Christianity, just as strongly as we reject Marxism and all other poisonous ideologies that the same den of vipers has infected us with. Our survival depends on our recognition of our true common identity and heritage, and on our recognition of the true identity of our common enemy. That's why these topics I'm discussing now are so important to me, and why I want to help spread this knowledge. Please help me do that by sharing this video. And if you can afford to, please consider making a small donation to help support my work. My links are in the description box. Thanks for listening. Peace.